In every generation, there are people who walk into a room and command attention not with loudness, but with presence, not with noise, but with depth, not with force, but with thoughtfulness. And yet, for decades, especially in Western cultures like the United States and Canada, and increasingly in fast-paced regions like the UK, India, and modern Europe, our societies have praised the loudest voices while overlooking the quiet ones. We reward charisma more than competence, volume more than value, and performance more than principle. But the truth that Susan Cain brings forward in Quiet is revolutionary. The world has silently depended on introverts more than it has ever acknowledged. This book and this summary reveals something empowering. Being quiet is not a weakness, it is a superpower in disguise. If you love powerful, insightful, and life-changing books, then you found the right channel. Every week, we break down the ideas that transform mindsets, elevate success, and shift lives. So don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you'll want to catch every book we review. Let's continue. When you look closely at some of the world's most influential minds, Albert Einstein, Warren Buffett, Rosa Parks, J.K. Rowling, Mahatma Gandhi, Elon Musk in many contexts, and even leaders like Barack Obama, you realize their hidden pattern. They win not by overpowering the world, but by understanding it more deeply than others do. Their power arises from the calm, steady, reflective spaces that most people overlook. And this is why quiet matters today more than ever. We live in an attention-driven era where everyone is encouraged to shout over each other. People are pressured to promote themselves, speak constantly, and perform endlessly. But the truth is, introverts, thinkers, creators, observers, empaths hold the key to some of humanity's greatest breakthroughs. Their quiet strength is the antidote to a world addicted to noise. As the philosopher Lao Tzu wrote, "Silence is a source of great strength." And in this book, Susan Cain does not just echo this truth, she proves it with science, stories, and lived experience. Why society underrates introverts and what that reveals about our culture. To understand why introverts struggle in systems designed for extroverts, Susan Cain traces the evolution of what Americans call the extrovert ideal, a cultural belief that successful people must be outgoing, sociable, charismatic, and high energy. This ideal shapes education, workplaces, leadership standards, and even relationships. From early 20th century America, when public speaking courses and personality-focused advertising exploded, to modern office spaces where open offices and constant collaboration are forced on everyone, society built an entire system that often unintentionally excludes introverts. Meanwhile, cultures like Japan, China, and some parts of Europe naturally respect thinking before speaking, humility, contemplation, and quiet strength. This contrast helps reveal a deeper truth. Personality expectations are not universal, they are cultural constructs. One of the earliest lessons the book teaches is that introversion is not a flaw, it is simply a different way of being powerful. And to embrace that truth, we must first understand how deeply society tried to shape people away from their natural temperament. A perfect American example is the modern classroom. Children are often graded on participation, which usually means speaking frequently, even if the student is thinking deeply instead of talking. In India, where competitiveness in schools is fierce, many children are pushed to appear confident and outspoken, whether or not that comes naturally. In the UK, work culture expects people to join group discussions and present ideas in meetings, even when they process information better in quiet spaces. And across Europe, open-plan offices became trendy, even though introverts work better in calm, controlled environments. This reveals a powerful truth. Introverts are not struggling because they lack ability. They are struggling because the system is not built for their strengths. But once you recognize this, you unlock the first major shift. Your quietness is not the problem, the environment is. The real difference between introverts and extroverts and why it matters. One of the most powerful insights in quiet is that introversion is not about shyness. It is about how people respond to stimulation. Extroverts thrive on high levels of external stimulation, noise, people, activity, energy. Introverts thrive on lower levels, calm environments, meaningful conversations, deep reflection. This has been proven through neuroscience, particularly through the work of psychologist Jerome Cain, who found that introverts have more sensitive nervous systems. This sensitivity is not a weakness. It is the source of empathy, creativity, and intuition. Think of introverts like deep-sea divers of the mind. They can reach psychological depths that others do not even know exist, but they need the right conditions to swim there. This heightened sensitivity helps explain why introverts often excel in careers requiring focus, creativity, precision, and emotional intelligence. Roles like writing, programming, design, analysis, research, and thought leadership often attract introverts because the environment aligns with their neurological strengths. Consider J.K. Rowling writing Harry Potter in a quiet cafe, or Bill Gates retreating for think weeks to read, strategize, and reflect. Or Warren Buffett quietly analyzing investments while others chase noise. Their greatness is rooted not in loudness, but in careful thought. This leads naturally to the next realization. When introverts embrace their natural temperament instead of fighting it, they unlock extraordinary potential. The danger of hiding your true nature and why faking extroversion kills potential. Susan Cain emphasizes a psychological phenomenon known as self-negation, when introverts pretend to be extroverts to meet society's expectations. While occasional adaptation is healthy, long-term pretending is destructive. Over time, masking drains mental energy, weakens confidence, and increases anxiety. In the U.S., many corporate workers report burnout not from workload, but from the pressure to perform extroversion in meetings, networking events, and team-building exercises. In Europe, countless professionals feel similarly drained by open offices and mandatory collaboration. In India, young people often adopt loud personas on social media to appear successful because society equates visibility with worth. But the truth is what Carl Jung, the originator of the introvert-extrovert concept, once said: "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is the emotional heartbeat of the book. Life transforms the moment you stop forcing yourself to be loud and start refining the strength in your quiet. Once this acceptance begins, a new chain reaction unfolds. You begin to understand your own value, choose environments that help you thrive, and wield the quiet superpowers that introverts possess. The hidden superpower of introverts: deep thinking. Quiet people are not empty, they are full. Their silence is not indecision, it is processing. Their hesitation is not fear, it is precision. The world often mistakes introverted reflection for weakness, but research proves the opposite. Introverts consistently excel in tasks that require deep concentration, planning, creativity, and long-term thinking. This is why introverted leaders, creators, and innovators have shaped history more profoundly than many realize. Susan Cain cites Rosa Parks, whose quiet courage ignited a movement. She references Eleanor Roosevelt, whose reserved nature did not stop her from becoming one of America's most impactful first ladies. Globally, Gandhi reshaped the world through quiet resistance. In the tech world, engineers, scientists, writers, and designers, many introverts, have built the digital ecosystem we rely on today. A modern example is Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, whose soft-spoken, reflective leadership style transformed the company and tripled its market value. His success proves that leadership is not about volume, it is about vision. The philosopher Blaise Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." But introverts have mastered what others avoid, the courage to listen to their inner world. And this is what fuels their next superpower: the power of listening and empathy. While many chase the spotlight, introverts excel at something far more valuable: listening. In a society where everyone speaks more than they hear, the ones who listen become the ones who understand, and the ones who understand become the ones who lead. Leadership research from Harvard shows that teams led by introverts often outperform others because introverted leaders listen to ideas, allow others to shine, and model calm decision-making during crises. This explains why some of the world's best managers, therapists, educators, and mediators are introverted. Their ability to tune into emotional nuance gives them a unique advantage. Think of Mr. Rogers, the gentle American TV icon who shaped generations through empathy, or Malala Yousafzai, whose quiet determination carried more moral weight than armies, or Japanese leaders who favor humility and harmony over bold declarations. Listening also deepens relationships. Many introverted people form extraordinarily strong bonds because they create safe emotional spaces for others. Their relationships may be fewer, but they are richer. This naturally leads to the next crucial insight. Introverts do not need to become extroverts. They need to become stronger introverts. Instead of pushing introverts to act extroverted, society must learn to appreciate quiet strengths. And introverts must learn to stop apologizing for who they are. Once an introvert recognizes their scientific nature, they stop comparing themselves to extroverts and instead begin to optimize their own energy, environments, and social rhythms. This is where quiet becomes transformational. It teaches that honoring your introversion is not self-indulgence, it is self-respect. There is a moment in every introvert's life when they begin to recognize the quiet patterns that shaped them, how they gravitated towards certain conversations, certain spaces, certain friends, and certain work environments. These patterns are not random. They are reflections of an inner architecture that introverts often ignore or suppress because the world keeps telling them they should be louder. Yet what Susan Cain shows again and again is that the more an introvert denies this natural architecture, the further they drift from their real power. It becomes clear that one of the deepest lessons in quiet is this: you cannot create a powerful life while pretending to be someone else. Once an introvert recognizes their true nature, something awakens within them, a shift towards authenticity, clarity, and inner stability. And from that stability, new forms of creativity begin to flourish.
The silent root of creativity. Introverts are the gardeners of ideas. They plant thoughts in solitude, water them with reflection, and return later to harvest insights that others might overlook in the busyness of life. Susan Cain explains that creativity thrives in depth, and depth thrives in quiet. Many of the world's greatest breakthroughs were not born in crowded rooms, but in isolated corners, studios, attics, basements, libraries, empty hotel rooms, long walks, quiet cars, and late-night desks illuminated by a single lamp. Think of Isaac Newton generating the foundations of classical physics in solitude, or Steve Wozniak building the first Apple computer alone in his cubicle before Steve Jobs ever marketed it, or writer Haruki Murakami, who disappears into long stretches of silence to write his globally celebrated novels, or Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who retreats into focused contemplation to craft literature that resonates across continents. One of the most important examples Cain cites is that brainstorming, something society assumes requires large groups, is scientifically less effective than individuals thinking alone and then combining ideas. Studies show that group pressure, social loafing, and louder personalities overshadow the contributions of quieter minds, even when those quieter minds hold the most valuable insights. This proves a powerful truth. Solitude is not the enemy of innovation. It is the birthplace of it. A philosophical echo of this comes from Søren Kierkegaard, who wrote that, quote, "The crowd is untruth," end quote. He did not mean that people are wrong. He meant that clarity often gets lost in noise. Truth and creativity reveal themselves most clearly when we are alone, free from pressure, comparison, or the need to perform. This understanding unlocks the next important realization for introverts. If creativity thrives in quiet, then introverts must learn to protect their quiet zones the same way a farmer protects fertile soil. They must create boundaries, schedules, routines, and spaces that allow their mind to breathe. The energy economy of introverts. One of the most insightful parts of quiet is the concept of restorative niches, places, moments, and routines that introverts use to recharge. Extroverts recharge by socializing. Introverts recharge by withdrawing. This is not a matter of preference, but of biology. Once introverts stop feeling guilty for needing solitude, they start performing better, thinking clearer, and engaging with others more meaningfully. In the US, many introverts hide in bathroom stalls during office parties because they are overwhelmed. In India, many escape to rooftops or staircases to recharge after long family gatherings. In the UK, people are more likely to find introverts decompressing on long, quiet walks or in bookshops. Across Europe, introverts tend to seek cafes or parks where they can blend into the environment unnoticed. This is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of self-awareness. Susan Cain emphasizes that introverts must learn to create restorative rituals in their lives. Whether it's morning quiet time, reading before bed, taking slow walks, or working alone for certain hours of the day, these moments act like mental oxygen. Without them, introverts suffocate long before anyone notices. There is a practical truth here. A tired introvert is not the same as an energized introvert. They become different people. Where one is patient, calm, and deeply thoughtful, the other becomes overstimulated, irritable, and creatively blocked. This directly leads to another major insight in the book: how introverts show up in relationships. Relationships often seem to favor extroverts. They speak more, express emotions outwardly, and engage easily in social settings. But introverts bring something just as valuable, sometimes more valuable, into relationships: depth, loyalty, empathy, reflection, and emotional steadiness. In Quiet, Susan Cain explores how introverts love. They love slowly, but deeply. They communicate thoughtfully rather than impulsively. They prefer meaningful moments over flashy expressions. They may not say many words, but the few they speak often come from a place of sincerity and emotional precision.
But this emotional depth also comes with a lesson. Introverts must protect their emotional energy. They must avoid relationships that drain them, environments that overwhelm them, and friendships that demand performance rather than presence. The philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke said, "I hold this to be the highest task for a bond between two people, that each protects the solitude of the other." Introverts thrive in relationships where their quietness is not just tolerated, but valued. Quiet leadership. Why some of the best leaders speak softly. One of the most surprising revelations in Quiet is that introverts often make better leaders than extroverts, especially in environments where employees are proactive and creative. Extroverted leaders excel in sales-driven, high-energy environments where inspiration and quick decisions are necessary. But introverted leaders excel in environments that require strategy, listening, and thoughtful decision-making. Susan Cain cites research from Adam Grant at Wharton, demonstrating that introverted leaders often outperform extroverted ones when managing proactive teams. Why? Because introverts listen. They encourage others' ideas. They do not impose their ego. They create space for innovation instead of dominating the room. Look at examples like Tim Cook at Apple, known for calm, methodical leadership. Satya Nadella at Microsoft transformed the company through empathy and deep listening. Marissa Mayer at Yahoo, her disciplined, introverted focus helped her excel at Google. And Mahatma Gandhi, whose quiet leadership moved millions and reshaped history. Warren Buffett, a quiet, analytical investor whose temperament is his superpower. The pattern is undeniable. When introverts lean into their temperament instead of smothering it, they become extraordinary leaders. But this leads to a critical realization. Introverts struggle not because they cannot lead, but because leadership environments are often designed for extroverts. Open offices, large meetings, constant collaboration, and rapid decision cycles favor people who think aloud. Introverts, however, think inwardly first and speak after reflection. Once workplaces understand this difference, and introverts themselves recognize it, leadership success skyrockets. The Quiet Revolution, a shift in global culture. In the final sections of this part, Susan Cain introduces a profound idea. The world is beginning to shift toward valuing introverts more than ever before. Digital communication, remote work, creative industries, and the rising respect for mental health are giving introverts space to thrive. Today, YouTubers who speak softly and calmly, like Matt D'Avella, attract millions. Podcasts hosted by thoughtful introverts dominate global charts. Meditation apps, quiet retreats, long-form writing, and deep storytelling have become mainstream. The global tech workforce, dominated by reflective thinkers, continues to shape the future of civilization. We live in a world where attention spans are shorter than ever before, yet the voices that cut through the noise are often the ones that speak calmly, with intention. The philosopher Nietzsche once wrote, "All truly great thoughts are conceived in solitude." The world seems to be rediscovering this truth. And as the world shifts, introverts must prepare for something powerful, to step into roles they once believed were not meant for people like them. As the world grows louder, faster, and more demanding, the quiet person often feels like an endangered species, misunderstood, undervalued, or even overlooked. Yet one of the deepest revelations from quiet is that silence has always been the birthplace of mastery. The inventions that changed our lives, the philosophies that shaped civilizations, the breakthroughs that redefined industries, so many of them began in solitude. The world remembers Einstein for relativity, but few remember that he spent years sitting alone in Swiss patent offices, thinking, scribbling, observing patterns no one else saw. It reminds us that the quiet mind is not an empty room. It is a laboratory of powerful possibilities. And each time the noise around you rises, it is a reminder that your ability to withdraw inward is not a weakness to fix, but a strength to harness. This lesson becomes even clearer when you look at how introverts innovate. They rarely compete for the spotlight. Instead, they build the gears that make the spotlight meaningful. Consider the way introverts working in global tech, engineers, designers, analysts, create the backbone of companies like Microsoft, Meta, Apple, and Google. Their work does not scream, it simply transforms. Silent innovation is still innovation, and often it is the most enduring kind. If the world is a stage, extroverts often dance at the front, but introverts quietly construct the stage itself. And without the stage, there is no performance. This understanding naturally leads to a deeper awareness. Every personality type has a purpose, but those who thrive are the ones who stop apologizing for their nature. At the heart of quiet lies the invitation to make peace with your temperament, not to hide behind it or use it as an excuse, but to understand it so deeply that you begin to use it skillfully.
Accepting your temperament is not just personal, it is strategic. Imagine a global team, time zones apart, backgrounds diverse, working on a project. The loudest voice in the room is not always the smartest. The one who speaks first is not always the one who thinks best. Even in America's top companies, leaders are discovering that diversity of thought begins with diversity of personality. They are building work systems that allow both the brainstormer and the contemplator to thrive. And when every personality is given space to contribute in its natural form, the output becomes more balanced, more creative, and more profound. The world becomes richer when you allow everyone to bring their authentic mind to the table. Yet embracing your temperament does not mean avoiding growth. In fact, the book shows that real growth happens when introverts and extroverts learn to borrow strength from each other. The introvert learns the value of stepping forward when purpose calls, while the extrovert learns the power of stillness and reflection. Growth is not becoming someone else, it is expanding who you already are. Just like how a musician trains not to abandon their natural tone, but to refine it, every person can develop skills that complement their core traits without harming their essence. This subtle blend of self-acceptance and strategic stretching becomes the foundation of emotional maturity. One of the most striking insights in quiet is what psychologists refer to as the orchid hypothesis. The idea that some people are more sensitive, and this sensitivity, when nurtured in the right environment, becomes a superpower. Highly sensitive children often grow into adults who feel deeply, think deeply, and notice details others miss. They can sense tension before it explodes, predict risks before they manifest, and understand people beyond their surface behavior. When such sensitivity is misunderstood, it can create anxiety. But when it is nourished, it creates excellence. Many of the world's best artists, therapists, writers, strategists, and innovators are highly sensitive individuals whose gifts blossom in supportive environments. Sensitivity is simply high-quality perception. It is vision turned inward and outward simultaneously. This leads to another powerful truth. Quiet influence is still influence. Influence is not always a microphone. Sometimes it is a pen, a strategy, a listening ear, or a compassionate presence. Think of Rosa Parks, whose single, silent refusal ignited one of the greatest civil rights movements in history. Think of Malala, whose gentle voice triggered global education reform. Think of introverted teachers, counselors, parents, religious leaders, and innovators whose quiet offerings shape thousands of lives every day. The volume of your voice has nothing to do with the power of your impact. Some of the strongest forces in life, gravity, time, electricity, are silent. Once you understand the power of quiet influence, you naturally begin to restructure your life around meaningful contribution rather than noisy performance. This is where purpose finds its depth. People often confuse performance with productivity and noise with relevance, believing that if they are not visible, they are not valuable. But purpose is rarely loud. It is steady. Purpose is not proven through applause, but through consistency. It is the quiet courage to show up every day, to build when no one is watching, to refine your gift even when appreciation feels scarce. Purpose does not demand attention, it commands fulfillment. Another major insight from quiet is that meaningful communication often begins with deep listening. In a world where everyone wants to speak, the person who listens becomes rare and therefore powerful. Listening reveals the truth beneath the noise. It uncovers motivations, fears, patterns, and possibilities. Effective leaders, from CEOs to military commanders to cultural icons, have begun to recognize this. They no longer see listening as passive, but as strategic. Warren Buffett listens more than he talks. Satya Nadella rebuilt Microsoft's culture through empathy and listening. Great therapists heal through the art of attentive silence. Listening is not silence, it is focused intelligence. When you listen deeply, you understand deeply yourself, others, and the world. This depth creates better decisions, stronger relationships, and more resilient leadership. And from this awareness emerges emotional stability, the strength to remain calm in chaos. Introverts often excel here, simply because they process internally before reacting. Instead of rushing, they pause. Instead of exploding, they evaluate. This stability becomes a priceless asset in a world addicted to speed. The more chaotic the environment, the more valuable the calm mind becomes. As Lao Tzu said, the best fighter is never angry. The best performer is never frantic. The best thinker is never reactive. The best leader is never noisy. And as all these lessons weave together, a final truth emerges. The quiet person's journey is not about escaping the world, but reshaping it. By embracing your natural strengths, understanding your sensitivities, cultivating deep focus, building thoughtful relationships, and practicing intentional influence, you bring a new dimension of power to society. You show others that strength can be soft, intelligence can be calm, leadership can be reflective, and impact can be quiet. The loud world begins to shift when the quiet person stops trying to become loud and instead becomes deeply themselves. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.